Hello and happy Monday. Welcome to the Midweek Check In. I'm so glad that you are joining us over here at JSM Counseling Joanna Snow Ministries. If you would do me a huge favor, go ahead and click that share button at the bottom of your screen right there. Click the button that says share it with all of your friends, and help us spread the message of mental health awareness. We know that we are in a month that is concerning prevention, and I can't say the word on social media for the sake of the live getting flagged, but I will do some psychoeducation on it next week. So we'll talk more about how to understand dealing with those thoughts, where they come from, what type of people deal with those thoughts, what do you do if someone around you is dealing with those thoughts, or if you're dealing with those thoughts, in fact. So I'm so excited to be with you and our new day of the week on Wednesday. So put it on your calendar. Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m. we will be talking about mental health. We'll be doing our midweek check-in and just checking in and seeing how things are going. So if you have just joined the live, just click that share button right there at the bottom of your screen and help us spread the message. We are located in the state of Alabama, Mobile to be exact. I'm going to get my scroll going here at the bottom of the screen. So I would that you would just connect with us on social media. You're here on Facebook. We're on YouTube as well. So we're streaming all over social media right now. So just hit the share button wherever it is that you are watching from. And like our page if you have not. I would love for you to like our page and stay connected with all the wonderful things that we are doing. Lately, here in the state of Alabama, what we do, we provide mental health services for those who may not be able to afford it at its full cost. So that tag right there tells you how to donate to us and help us continue to be able to help others who are struggling in their mental health. So this week we are talking about understanding cognitive distortions. Once again, hit that share button at the bottom if you have not. Comment, let us know where you're watching from. I will go back and respond to the comments. So every Wednesday we'll be here at Joanna Snow Ministries on that page. So I'm going to bring up my presentation this week. My name is Kiara Brown. I'm a counseling intern here at JSM Counseling. Okay, there we go. So, understanding cognitive distortions. That's what we're talking about today. Understanding cognitive distortion. And I know you may be wondering, who is this person and what in the world are cognitive distortions? Well, I am so glad you asked. So, I'm waiting on my slides to go. There we go. There we go. We're moving now. So, if you don't know who I am, my name is Kiara Brown. I'm a native of Mississippi. That's right. I'm from Mississippi. I relocated to Alabama a few years ago. So, I am glad to be in this wonderful state of Alabama. It's been quite a journey. I've met so many of you. I'm a Mississippi native. I'm under direct supervision of Joanna Snow, MA LPCS, and Dr. Alexandra Lawless, LPCS. I am accountable to a licensed psychologist, and I'm accountable to two teams of therapists as well. The team here at JSM Counseling and the team at my college, university, GCU. And I see couples, children, teens, and individuals. And I have experience in also navigating personal trauma. Well, why is that important? Well, I want you to know that sometimes people tend to shy away from therapy because they think that, oh my gosh, my therapist doesn't know anything. She doesn't know anything about trauma. She hasn't gone through anything. Well, I just want to let you know that I know a lot about trauma. Most of us who become therapists, we become therapists because we have navigated personal trauma in some way. and I'm a former multimedia producer, and so that means I have a background in television and news. That's where I began to learn that I had a love for mental health. I saw people as more than a story, an opportunity. I wanted to help them in the issues that they were going through. I am empathetic. I am trauma informed, culturally competent, and I'm pretty out the box. I offer weekend appointments. That's right, weekend. Can you say weekend? Who goes to counseling on a Friday or Sunday? Sunday night is like packed on my schedule. So I like to be accommodating to those of you who have full-time jobs, who have children, who have families and other, scheduling needs, who can't make a Monday through Friday 8 to 5 or 10 to 6. I am the person who will accommodate you. I love what I do, and I think that everyone should have an opportunity to be able to go to counseling. All right. My slides are moving a little bit slow here. I'm waiting on it to go to the next one. Okay, there we go. Understanding cognitive distortion. What is cognitive distortion? Cognitive distortion is irrational or biased ways of thinking that negatively influence our perception of reality. So, in other words, cognitive distortion is the way that we think, right? It influences our perception of reality. It influences how we think. It influences how we see the world. So, we're going to get more into what those cognitive uh, distortions look like. Um, we're going to get more into that. So, any type of biased way of thinking, and I know you may be thinking, I am not biased. There's no way I have no biases. Well, we all have biases that we tend to lean towards, right? And the thing about a bias is that you always notice the thing that your bias is, right? So I tell people, if you get a red car, all of a sudden you be like, everybody got a red car because I got a red car. I have a red Toyota. Nobody was driving Toyotas before I had a Toyota. And truth is, those people may have had those cars longer than you. You just happen to notice them more now because you're driving one. So that is your bias, right? You always notice Toyotas because you're the person who's driving a Toyota. Okay? So we're gonna go to our next slide. They're moving a little slow tonight. I don't know why. All right. So notice I said that who has those cognitive distortions? You and me. We all battle cognitive distortions from time to time. High stress individuals, marginalized communities, right? So we're talking about marginalized communities. We're talking about certain races, right? So we're talking about certain races. There's this misconceptions that, oh, this race does this or they don't do that or they do this. Trauma survivors, right? When you've experienced certain traumas, you may have certain beliefs about yourself and the world around them, even those who experience mental health challenges. So you and I are not excluded from that list. Okay, so let's go over some common cognitive distortions. All or nothing. All or nothing. Overgeneralization, okay? Should statements, mind reading, I always get this word, y'all, catastrophizing and labeling. And I'm going to break down what each one of those mean. Okay, so I'm going to break down what each one of those mean and what type of people have them. So a few places that this comes from is early life experiences. Wow, early life experience. So in early life, we think that we're being brought into the world with, loving and nurturing families and friends and all of these things, but sometimes not everyone has that experience. Sometimes we have the experience of mom and dad weren't really there for us. If you're just joining, can you go ahead and hit the share button and help us spread the message of mental health and wellness? I know that I was wanting to do this last week on cognitive distortion, and well, week before last, because we were in bad weather, or at least we thought, and I completely lost sound in the middle of my presentation. So I wanted to make sure that you got it tonight. So early life experiences. What were your experiences like with your parents? What did your parents teach you about people? What do you believe about people? Cultural and societal influences, right? Culture plays a big part in our cognitive distortions. Trauma and stressful events. Wow. If you've ever experienced any type of trauma or stressful event, that is a place where cognitive distortions come from. Personality traits, mental health conditions, societal and relational dynamics, cognitive and learning processes. So those are places where your cognitive distortions may come from, right? And once again, we all experience these from time to time. So let's look at all or nothing. All or nothing. So all or nothing thinking. Let's talk about that. What does that look like? All or nothing thinking. So when I was doing my research on this particular cognitive distortion, what I noticed is that all or nothing thinking is usually found in people who are extremely successful. So, some popular celebrities that deal with this form of thinking is they said Michael Jordan, right? I was reading an article where Charles Barkley talked about how challenging it was to play with Michael Jordan, because he said Michael Jordan always wanted to win every single game. So he was putting pressure on those around him to win, right? And so there's a reason why he felt like he had to be, perfect and win every single game, and there was no room for mistakes or room for losing. And those are usually your perfectionist type of people. They're either on the high end, they're really successful, and on the low end, they're really unsuccessful. So we're talking about Steve Jobs, right? Elon Musk. These are people who think like that. Oprah Winfrey, Beyonce. I was hearing about her Coachella documentary where she talked about she was working so hard and practicing so hard that she was forgetting that everybody on her team didn't really, they needed breaks, they needed to eat, they needed to see their children, they needed to take naps, and she said she wasn't really considering what it is that they needed. So those are your really successful people. And I even pulled some Bible characters out for y'all. Moses. Okay, if you remember Moses saying, "No, Lord, I can't do this. I can't go. I can't go unless your presence is with me." And he talks about being someone who he had a speech impediment. And then we saw this in Elijah as well. So all or nothing thinking, those people view things as black or white. Polarized thinking without recognizing any middle ground. So it's either perfection or not. It's either I'm perfect or I failed. It's no like in between where I can be progressing and I can make mistakes. It's either I'm doing well or I'm failing. So those are your people who just everything is black and white, right? So it shows up in relationships when you say you never know how I'm feeling. Always, and please, I always tell my couples, be careful with using terms like always and never. Always and never, because you will make it seem like a person is doing something all of the time or none of the time, and that's not really helpful to your relationships, because sometimes a person can do something and it not be all of the time. So either a person quits really easy or they succeed really well. Okay, they quit really easy or they succeed really well. And the next cognitive distortion that we're going to go to, we're going to talk about, well, before we get there, we want to talk about anxiety and hopelessness and depression and burnout. That's what the all or nothing thinking leads to, because you have this pressure that you must do so well and you must do it every single time and you must get it every single time and you must make straight A's every single time. You must make every basket and you cannot fail in the game, and you can't miss a pass, and you can't miss a field goal, and you can't miss a 3-pointer, right? So you must get it right every single time, and that leads to anxiety because your mind is going to go, your brain is going to be like, okay, let me think about the future, let me think about the possibility of failing because I can't afford to do that. Hopelessness, right? So you become hopeless because it's like, I don't feel like I'm going to do well this time. And if you make a mistake, you have these very high expectations of yourself, so we get to hopelessness. Depression, that's when we, think about the past and think about past failures, and you'll start equating yourself to being a failure. Fear of failure, self-judgment, and look what I said. Now, these are the bad things, but there are also some good things that come from this cognitive distortion: goal accomplishment and success. So this is your really driven, these are your really driven people. They're really driven. And again, if you're just joining us, would you do me a great favor and press the share button at the bottom and help us spread the message over here at JSM Counseling about what it is that we do in the state of Alabama. My next cognitive distortion that I'm talking about is mind reading. Mind reading. Whoa. So if you've ever walked in a room and you just, you didn't really know, the people in the room or what they were thinking or what they were talking about, and you looked over and you were like, oh, they're talking about me. I bet they're talking about me. I bet they think I'm stupid. I bet they think I'm dumb. I bet they think I'm ugly. All those things. That is mind reading, right? So mind reading, it's very common in relationships. I notice that a lot, where a couple can be together and one person just looks over and like, you know what, I bet you that they think I'm this. I bet they think I'm lazy. And sometimes mind reading is really about things that we are feeling or we're thinking, so we project that onto other people. So assuming what someone else is thinking without evidence, right? So it creates anxiety a lot in relationships, that your anxious attachment folks, where they're like, oh my gosh, you didn't text me back fast enough, you must really not like me, you must really not want me, you must really be upset with me, those type of things. They think I'm ugly, they probably think I'm dumb, or every time I talk they probably hate to hear me talking. She's probably thinking this, she's probably thinking that, right? So it increases anxiety, and you respond to others based off the perception or what you think that they're saying in their heads and not what they're actually saying. So it's very important in relationships that you listen to understand and not respond, because it's easy to just be present physically, but your mind is, you're reading their mind and you start responding to what you were, reading in the mind reading that you're doing. Like, oh, what you really think is, or what you're really trying to say is, what you really believe is. And so that's how we get over into the mind reading. So remember that we're not mind readers. It's not our job and our responsibility to try to, tell another person what it is that they're thinking. The next one I want to talk about is overgeneralization, right? So overgeneralization means one experience is all experiences, or a few experiences is all experiences, right? So what that looks like is we start talking about, oh my gosh, um, all men. Those are the people that kind of go to the extreme sometime, right? They kind of go a little bit overboard, and they put everybody in the same category as their a few experiences. So one friend hurt me, I cannot trust anyone. That is a form of overgeneralization. So you make a sweeping conclusion off of a single experience. So it's like, well, I failed one test, I'm going to fail every single test I take, I'm never going to get a good job, I'll never, because I didn't get that one job offer, right? So a lot of times your missed opportunities will bring up overgeneralization. So I missed this opportunity, so that means I'm gonna miss all opportunities. So that is your overgeneralizations, right? I had one bad relationship, so all my relationships will be terrible. I was rejected once, so no one will ever date me. All of these things, feelings of hopelessness, discouragement, and anxiety is what it brings, right? So it leads to avoidance of opportunities, right? So you avoid applying for a job again, you avoid getting or dating again or getting into a relationship again, right? So because of when we talked about the cognitive biases earlier in the first slide, we talked about cognitive bias. So when I said we all have biases, right? So naturally our brains start looking for patterns, but when overgeneralization happens, we form false or exaggerated patterns, right? So we have, and what you must, when you think a thing long enough, it becomes a belief system. So that belief system is I'm not good enough or I always fail. Those negative beliefs, right? So identifying the evidence, right? Ask yourself, is this always true? That's when, remember I said the always and never, be careful with that. Is this always true? Is there any evidence that I have that isn't always true? And you may be thinking, I don't have any evidence. But the thing about cognitive bias is that you will like miss the evidence. You will miss it and say, oh no, because you don't, your brain is trained to look for those patterns, right? So one of the things you want to do with overgeneralizations, you want to reframe that, right? It doesn't mean that all, like, all men are going to be terrible because the last boyfriend I had was terrible, right? So instead of saying that, you can acknowledge that my last relationship was terrible, but that doesn't necessarily mean that all of my relationships will be terrible. All women or all churches or all bosses, or you can say, well, my last boss was a not so nice boss. She was very mean. So you don't want to overgeneralize and think that all of your bosses are going to be mean, right? So that's just a little bit more on overgeneralization. Overgeneralization is what it calls. So my next one, you may not even notice that you do this, is called should statements. Are you familiar with should statements? So should statements are those rigid rules and expectations you put on yourself or on others, and you start saying they should have done this, or I should have done this, or I should have known, or I should have chosen. It's just the should statements, right? So those are the things where you have all these rules for yourself and others, right? My friends or my partner should always understand my needs without me having to explain them. We see this a lot in couples, right? You're thinking, well, I shouldn't have to tell them what I need. They should know it, right? So that is a rule, and it's a very hard rule to put on someone. And there's no wiggle room there. And it's the same way for yourself. When you start saying, I should have known better, or I should have knew that, I should have figured out, I should have did this, or I should have. And so what happens is when you do that, you're just technically beating yourself up. You're technically just being mean to yourself and hard on yourself. I, Truth is, you will not know everything all the time. You may not know everything all the time. You may not get everything right. And that is okay. It is okay that you don't get everything right. It is okay that you don't have everything figured out and worked out, and it's okay. Okay, it is absolutely okay. Some things you don't know until you get in that situation, and you're able to look back in hindsight and say, well, I learned something from that last situation. So what those should statements do is create pressure and unrealistic standards, leading to stress and self-criticisms when goals are not met, right? So should statements is when you have this mean inner critic, right? You should have known this, you should not have done this, you should be here by now. It's no grace, no room for growth, right? So you that should cognitive distortion is really it's deprecating, I'm sorry. It's very it's deprecating. It's not the best or the happiest, right? So just be mindful of the should statements and how you talk to yourself. So I want to give you like 4 tips here on those should statements. You want to start with self compassion. Self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. One question that counselors always ask is, would you talk to a friend that way? And most of the time people say, no, I would never say that to a friend. Well, why do you say it to yourself? You're no different. If they deserve compassion, you do too. So replace that with something kinder, right? What is a kind thing that you could say to yourself? Huh? What can you say that's kind? Instead of, I should have took the trash out. Well, I forgot to take the trash out, but I'll do better next time. Oh, sometimes people forget, right? All of those things. Acknowledgement of imperfections. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Acknowledging that I have imperfections and it's okay to have imperfections, right? Everybody does not have, everybody's not perfect. And stop holding yourself to this standard of being perfect. Another thing that you can do is create some SMART goals. A lot of times with the should statements and the perfectionists and the people who are all or nothing, we tend to think that, you know, setting these big goals for things that we have not even setting big goals for things that we have not accomplished, that we can't accomplish. So what happens is you don't accomplish that goal and you end up reinforcing the very belief that's not good for you, right? So SMART goals. I want to introduce you to SMART goals in just a second, but you don't want to set big goals. You don't want to set goals, especially if you're trying something new. You don't want to say, well, you know what? I'm going to cook dinner 5 times this week. Wait a minute. We got to consider, how much time do you have in the week? Can you realistically do that? So setting SMART goals, it means a specific goal. Define the exact improvement you want to make. So specific. So you say, well, you know what? I'm going to eat one meal a day without sugar, or I'm going to do some mindfulness once a day or once a week, right? Specific, right? You're defining what it wants. I'm going to improve my mental health. I'm going to be more present. Measurable, okay? So how will I measure that process? I will do it for, and time bound. This goes together, time bound. So I'm going to do it for 10 minutes every Monday, right? Relevant. So does it mean something? This is where a lot of times, if you don't assign a why to a goal that you're trying to accomplish, you will not accomplish it. If you don't have a why, you won't stick to it because you don't have a reason, right? And you want to make sure that it's something you can obtain, something achievable, something realistic. You cannot go from not ever practicing mindfulness and being full of anxiety to, I'm going to do mindfulness every day of the week. Is not going to work that way. So you want to make sure they are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Okay. So screenshot that if you are watching from your phone. And if you're also watching, can you do me a huge favor and press that share button? Let me know that you are watching. Share this with your friends, right? Hold on. I skipped the slide here. The SMART goal slide. So I want to say that there's a reason why I encourage SMART goals, because not everyone is in counseling because they have a mental illness. Sometimes you just need a little help in figuring out why is it that you can't accomplish the things that you know that you desire to accomplish. So when you don't accomplish things, it can impact your mental health. So when we talk about low self-esteem, people who have a low self-esteem, they're not people who accomplish goals often, right? They feel low. They have that low self-esteem because they're not setting good goals, or they don't know how to set them correctly. And so when they don't accomplish them, they end up in a bad space mentally. So clarity helps in setting mental health objectives. Focus breaks down goals into manageable steps, right? So if your goal is, I'm going to go to the gym, well, the first thing I need to do is go over to the gym, drive over to Planet Fitness or Club 4, or wherever it is you work out, and I'm going to purchase a membership. I'm going to purchase a membership. So that's step one into my SMART goals. Okay, I'm going to put this into a small goal. I'm going to get me a membership. The next thing is motivation. What is my motivation for this? Am I going to the gym because I want to fit a dress? So sitting down and defining your goals into small, manageable, achievable, relevant steps will really, really help. Okay. So accountability. Okay, so how are you going to be accountable? Do you have an app? Do you have a way to track what you're doing? Do you have a journal? I encourage journaling a lot of times as a therapist, because, or a counseling intern, I want to correctly use my title here. Accountability is journaling, and a lot of times when I assign it, people like, journaling. But that's a form of accountability, because you're able to put down what it is that you're actually feeling and what you're experiencing and keep tracking. You'll notice, wait a minute, every month on the 3rd, I feel this way. Why is that? Right? Or every week, I was able to accomplish this today. That's accountability. So journaling is a form of light accountability. There are also like apps, like eating apps for that, where you log your meals or you log your workouts or whatever. So accountability is important. Getting a coach, getting a trainer, someone that you're accountable to, a therapist, a coach, anybody that has the ability to help hold you accountable. So catastrophizing, whoa, so that means you view one small thing as a big thing, right? Catastrophizing is when one situation is like, it's kind of like those people when we're talking about, they make a mountain out of a molehill, right? Expecting the worst possible outcome. That's what catastrophizing does, right? Expecting the absolute worst, like nothing else can happen but the worst in this situation. And that's a very hard mindset to make, right? So catastrophizing is a cognitive distortion where a person expects the worst outcomes or believe that this situation is far worse than it actually is, right? So it's thinking the worst can happen in every situation. So personal examples: if I make a mistake at work, I'll get fired. I'll never find another job, right? So if I get sick, it could be something serious and I'll never recover. Social example. So those are the people who are on Google all the time looking at their symptoms. And like, oh my God, if you Google your health symptoms, they will always tell you you are not doing good. Social examples. If my partner doesn't respond to my text right away, they must want to break up with me. So it heightens your anxiety and panic, and it leads to feelings of hopelessness or despair. It will cause you to avoid right things and people because you have this fear of failure that's very intense. You're very indecisive on in day-to-day situations. There's a fear of uncertainty, like and these negative core beliefs, like I am not capable or bad things always happen to me. So one thing that I encourage with catastrophizing is breaking down that fear. So, what's the worst that could realistically happen? Right? What's the worst? What's the worst? Like sometimes the worst is like, okay, well, this job may say no to me, right? This job may not hire me. And so, has it ever happened before? So, what's the evidence? Has it ever happened before? What's the likelihood of this happening? You might have a 50-50 percentage chance or whatever. So what is the plan? What will I do if the worst case scenario happens? What will I do if they don't hire me on this job? Well, I'll just go to the next job and I'll apply for another one, you know. So one of the things I encourage is deep breathing, staying in the present, practicing mindfulness, right? So, and in order to do this, you've got to identify what your catastrophizing thought is. What is that thought that just seems so deprivating and so heavy and so hard and so bad? What is that thought, and what does that look like for me in my life? And we're going to move on to the next one. I'm not going to be on here long today. Labeling. A cognitive distortions where individuals tend to apply negative labels, right? Negative or global labels to themselves or others. Wow. So that's when you start, calling people names, a lot of name calling. You ever notice that sometimes some people get frustrated that they begin to call people names sometimes, and they don't know how to not call names. They'll say something that is not, the nicest thing. So, saying, well, I really wanted to clean my room, so I'm OCD. So that is labeling yourself as that is labeling yourself at the worst, right? You're saying that, oh my gosh, if I like to be clean, if I'm, I want a clean room today, then I must have a obsessive compulsive disorder, right? And I don't like when people use that. I don't think no clinician does, because it's more intense than that, right? Or I forgot to take the trash out, so I'm irresponsible. Or and this is common in relationships, and it's really, really hurtful to relationships because words are painful sometimes. The word that you use can be very painful. So you can tend to label your partner, oh, you're so lazy, you didn't take the trash out, how dare you, you're this and you don't care, and you are stupid and you're clumsy and da da da. And so, and especially this is really important to kids, because kids will hear those labels and they take them with them. They do. And they'll start believing that about themselves. They'll start believing that clumsy, or believing that they're stupid, or believing that they're not smart, because someone in their life labeled them. Okay. So I'm almost done here. If you haven't already, press that share button for me at the bottom of the screen. Comment, let me know where you're watching from as well. So, in relationships, right, you create this negative bias about your partner. You start talking to your partner about talking about your partner to other people. You have more conflict, right? You don't have a lot of understanding. So, screenshot this if you can. So, sometimes there are people who avoid conflict and avoid disagreements because they're like, oh, I'm terrible if we get into a disagreement. It's always doom and gloom. So, real quickly, I'm going to teach you some ways to identify cognitive distortions. So, how do you dignify? I put identify. How did I put CDs to make it a little more fun? But there's nothing fun about cognitive distortions. But one way, remember, I talked about accountability, journaling. Journaling, right? So pull out your journal and write down what it is that you're thinking and you're feeling and you're believing. And so when you're able to look back in that, so most of them fall into three categories in psychology, even though there are a lot of them. It is usually three thoughts: I'm helpless, I'm unlovable, and I think the other one is that I'm worthless. I can't remember at the right at this very moment, but there are three big psychological thoughts. Those three unhelpful thoughts that most of these cognitive distortions um, are based on in psychology. I'm trying to remember what exactly the third one is, but it is I know I'm helpless is one of them. I'm unlovable is another one. And I'm trying to think real quick. Um, but anyway, there are three of those. I'm helpless, I'm unlovable, and I am worthless. That's it. I am worthless. So, worthless usually deals with self esteem, self worth. Unlovable deals with rejection of self, loneliness, isolation. Helpless meaning that you have no control over any of your circumstances. So, that's where a lot of those things stem from, those three main categories of thoughts. Also, thought logs. Those are worksheets that we give out to help you be like, hey, what was it that I was thinking today? What have I been thinking today? Because sometimes you behave and it's not intentional, it's subconscious, but it's based on a subconscious thought, your behavior patterns. So when you come to therapy, I'll say, catch me up. So you're able to tell me what it is and how you behaved this week and what happened. And sometimes people go into what they thought and what they felt. And I'll give them a journal prompt, some journal prompts, right, that will help them identify what it is that's coming up for them, and why they're making the choices that they are making. So that's what the journal prompts do. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's not deep work, you know, things like that. And so you want to start with, what are three things you're proud of? What challenges did you face? What did I learn about myself recently? What habits do I want to break? How do I define myself? How would my life change if I believed I was worthy enough? What experience have shaped the way I see myself? Right? What are three things I can do to take care of myself when I'm overwhelmed? What's stressing me out right now? So all of those things. What qualities do I value in my relationship? These things help reveal it is how you think and how you behave. Emotional triggers. What triggers you emotionally? Feedback without defensiveness or shame. So, being able to accept feedback without defensiveness or shame is very, very big. So, sometimes there are people who cannot take feedback without defensiveness. If you tell them, oh my goodness, that wasn't, you know, hey, I don't need you to do that today, or I don't think that that's what they meant, or, you know, can we do this better? Sometimes people get very defensive, like, I worked hard on this, and rightfully so if you worked hard on something. But the defensiveness and the shame comes in because I feel a need to protect myself. And you're usually protecting yourself or responding to that person out of what it is that you think of concerning yourself. So, lastly, I just want to close this. This is not all the cognitive distortions, but this is where I'm going to start. And next week, we're going to talk about suicide prevention, and we're going to talk about what that looks like, what type of people have those thoughts. So, that's me right there. I am Kiara Brown. I want to thank you so much for watching. If you haven't, just please, please, please click that share button and help us spread the word of what it is that we do. If you would like to donate to what we do, to give financially to Joanna Snow Ministries, just visit that website down there at the bottom. Visit that website. And just help us spread the word. We have a podcast that's out now, and it's called Moses is in Session. So it's about exploring the Bible and psychology at the same time. So I've been listening to it, and I highly recommend that you do the same. I learned a lot from that podcast. It's a bunch of therapists talking about it, so it's really amazing. Our team is, it's just phenomenal. So thank you so much for watching. I ask that you connect with me if you want to find more about who I am, biography, and just who it is that I counsel, what I see, and what I do. I recently changed my TikTok name to um, just made you think. So my it's not at armchair therapy anymore. It's just at just made you think. So I'm on Facebook as Kiara Brown Counseling Intern, and I am on TikTok and Instagram at Just Made You Think. At Just Made You Think. I've been trying to find the perfect Instagram and TikTok username, and finally I found it. So thank you so much for joining. I would that you would share this broadcast with someone on your timeline, someone you care about. Share this broadcast with them, okay? Share this broadcast, let them know, because we understand that not everyone can, you know, um, get to our office all the time, but check out some of the psychoeducation materials that we're putting here. So I'll be here every Wednesday for your midweek check-in at 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you're in the South, that's 5:30 Central Standard Time. So make sure that you come on and let me know how you're doing. Let me know in the comments if there's any particular thing you want me to talk about or hear about, or, you know, something you're interested in learning. We're going to go deep in these next few few weeks over up until next year. We're going to go pretty deep in this virtual group. We're going to talk about narcissism. We're going to talk about so many things, like what does narcissism look like? How do you define narcissism? Who's a narcissist? So we're going to go into all of that in the upcoming weeks. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for joining me over here on this wonderful platform. I want you to have a great night. Remember to take care of yourself. Do something you enjoy tonight. Take a few minutes. It doesn't take long. Sometimes you just need to do one thing that you really enjoy tonight. So maybe let's eat you a good snack, take you a good nap. Whatever it is that you need to do to just connect with yourself. Get a cone of ice cream if that's what you like, or ride a bike, go for a walk, or just sit still and don't do anything but be present. One of the things about mindfulness is that you don't want to sit still and not be present. You don't want to sit still and not be present, because sometimes we do mindfulness wrong, and that's when we're sitting and we're doing nothing, but we're not necessarily present mentally. So we want to make sure that we are mentally present and not just physically present as well. Thank you so much for joining me for the midweek check-in. Join me next Wednesday, 5:30 Central Standard Time. We're going to talk about suicide prevention, and I can't wait to share those things with you. So tell someone that you love to join us over here on Joanna Snow Ministries. Thank you, and have a great